Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals, one of the most watched and listened to podcasts. I'm Randall Carlisle, along with my co-host Rachel Santizo. And
morning.
we will introduce our guest in just a second. The whole point of Odyssey House Journals is to examine the disease we know is addiction and how complicated and confusing it is, and hopefully shed some light on it, and then also talk about the possibility of recovery and success as you're working to overcome that addiction. And really, addiction is something that nobody's explained very well, and we're all doing research on it and everything still. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, nobody has an answer saying this is how we solve addiction.
I would definitely agree. I mean, how can you explain it? It's so complex and everybody's story is so different. So I don't really know that you can explain it, but the more that we share our stories, the more that we can try to understand it.
Here's one thing I can't explain, and I bet you can't either, and Molly can't either. The latest facts that Matt, our producer and videographer, gave us shows where people are listening and watching to us.
Yeah.
And would you believe we have more people watching and listening to us in New York City than we do in Kaysville, Utah?
Wow.
Interesting fact.
Ew, that's a good fun fact. I like that.
Now, a statistician might argue, well, there's, 20 million people in New York City and maybe only 100,000 in Kaysville. So that could explain why there's such a discrepancy.
Well, and we've had some stories lately from New York City, and so I think it's a great way to have some understanding because New York City is a lot bigger.
Yes.
And so I actually think that's quite incredible.
So if you're watching from the Big Apple, hello and welcome today. Now, do you want to introduce our guest?
Ooh, I would love to. So today we have a very special guest. She's very special to me, and this is Molly Whimpey. And I can't wait for her to explain her story and where she's come from and where she's at today. And so without further ado, this courageous woman, Molly.
Hello.
We examined the good, the bad, and the ugly on this, and so maybe we should close with the good and start with the ugly or bad. What can you maybe go into a little of your past?
Sure. I mean, I started out with the typical, well, I don't know if it's typical to start out with drugs, but that's how it started out for me. I was just young, smoking weed, and started out with some acid.
At what age?
15.
Okay.
And then I was introduced to meth at like 16. Me and my best friend got into it, and then our parents caught us actually on my 17th birthday, and somehow we convinced our moms, like, well, you should let us move to Colorado and we can get clean. And like they let us. We had a friend out there, and it worked. We got clean out in Colorado.
Did you go to a rehab place, or you just moved there?
No, we just moved there. We had a friend out there, and I can't say we got clean. We got off meth. But we continued to like smoke weed and drink, and, we partied out there. But, we feel like we got clean because we got off meth,
Right.
What was the allure of meth at that age?
It was a party drug, You could just stay up for days and party. I feel like that was probably the attraction.
Okay, so you kept partying in Colorado,
Right,
but you stopped meth.
right.
And then what happened?
So, I mean, we stayed out there for probably a year, and then Utah always, I don't know what it is, but Utah always brings you back. So we came back.
Come back to Utah.
Yeah. And, I mean, I just continued smoking weed, working in coffee shops for years, I would say 10 years just smoking weed and drinking coffee, and like the occasional pill popping and cocaine. And then probably when I was 27, our dealer couldn't get cocaine, and he was like, well, I have some heroin. And it was like, well, I would never do heroin, but I don't know why. It was just like, sure, we'll try heroin. And it made me so sick. And but I wanted more. I don't know what it was.
The addictive quality of it.
Yeah.
Did you inject it or smoke it or snort it or what?
The first time we smoked it, and it was so gross. But, like, yeah, I just wanted more. And it was quick. It just grabbed me quick. And
After one time?
yeah, I would say so. I would say so. So, yeah, I was hooked, but I was kind of functional. Like, I kept my job. I continued working at the coffee shop, and then it was like I wanted to do the whole geographical move again, you know? So I moved to Austin, Texas, because I was like, I need to get off heroin. And
Why did you pick Austin?
because my friend was moving there. So I was like, I'm going to tag along. Let's go to Austin. So I moved there, and my downstairs neighbor was a heroin dealer.
Convenient.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it was the same old thing out there. Just continued using and stayed out there for a year. And then Utah was calling, and I just came back.
Come back again.
Right.
I have a question. When you were introduced to heroin, were you also introduced to new people? Because as new drugs were introduced, were there new people as well? Or did you stay around the same crowd?
It was definitely like one girl. It was a coworker at the coffee shop. Like, she was like my main buddy. But sure, like, other people would trickle in and out.
Okay.
You know, like the people you get it from. But it was always definitely like one girl, like my
That was
main
your
buddy.
main-
Yeah.
okay.
Like the one that when I came back from Austin, like, obviously I wasn't going to get a job, you know. That's when I started committing crimes and like doing the terrible things, like stealing from my family, you know. And
Describe that for, let me stop you for, I facilitate a family support group. And it's primarily parents of adult addicts, and they talk about that all the time, that their kids come back and steal from them to get money to buy more drugs. And what goes through your head at that point? I mean, these are the people that raised you, and you're stealing from them.
right.
What were you thinking at the time?
Myself, you know, you don't consider them, and all you consider is like that next fix. You don't consider like the history of like that jewelry you're stealing, you know. I'm a nervous crier.
That's
Don't
all
judge
right.
me.
That's all right.
So, like, you know, I stole that wedding ring from my mom and dad's marriage, you know, from like, they were divorced like, you know, 30 years ago, whatever.
It's
And
still sentimental value.
Right.
Right.
I stole everything, you know. You don't consider that. It doesn't matter. I didn't steal. I sold that jewelry that was left to me when my dad passed away, you know. It didn't matter to me. It was gold. I could have, you know, I got money for it. So you don't consider it.
See, a person who's not an addict can't understand your state of mind at that point.
Right.
Can you sort of explain? I mean, you sort of did that. It's, you know, your parents' sentimental value, all that's sort of in the background, but in the foreground, it's buying more drugs.
Right. It's buying more drugs, and then like you can't explain it. There's no explanation for it.
But you don't go through the thought process that somebody who's sober would think about, saying, "Oh my God, these are my parents. Oh my God, this ring has sentimental value," or anything like that.
Yeah, you don't play that tape through at all.
Huh.
There's no tape to be played. It's that next high.
I'm not criticizing you. I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Right.
Rachel's in recovery, and we both did stuff that we're not proud of too. So,
Right.
you know, and you don't ever think about the consequences. Even for like an alcoholic, a lot of times, I mean, when I would go out to a bar, I'd say, if I drink too much, I'm not going to drive. But then after you're high, you say, I'm okay to drive,
Yeah.
and your logic goes out the window.
Yeah.
Wow. What is just out of curiosity, like if you have a wedding ring or something like that, where do you go to get the money?
Just a pawn shop, and then it makes it really easy to get caught.
Because
Because, well, for instance, my mom, she is not an enabler. She wants to know where that stuff is, so she calls the cops, and she's not stupid. She knows it's going to go to a pawn shop. And she pressed charges, and I don't hate her for that, That because of her, like, putting me out on the streets, pressing those charges, like, that's what saved my life in the end, Actually, there's a connection to you. You know my stepdad. My mom came up to you when I was in jail. You know my stepdad through Craig Worth, Steve Anderson.
yeah,
And my mom came up to you at a public function and said, my daughter's in jail. She's addicted to heroin. She needs to get into Odyssey House. And, like, you gave her the card and told her the process of how to get me in.
so one of the things I'm glad I was part of it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we deal with in this family support group is we talk about enabling, and it's but I love my daughter, and I couldn't ever put her out on the street or call the cops on her. And then we go back and forth about whether calling the cops is an act of love or not calling the cops is an act of love. I mean, how would you respond to that?
I say it is, because if you're not, it's just, in the end, it's killing them slowly. And if you are, to me, it's getting them the help they need. It's putting them in jail. It's getting them closer to a program. It sucks. They have to go through it, but it's what helped me in the end. She had to do it a few times, But,
Re-addicts are slow
That's it,
learners,
yeah.
aren't they?
right.
That's what I was going to ask, is how many times did you have to go to jail, and then what was that transition for you? And then how did you eventually choose or surrender to get to the point where you did get the help that you needed?
I'm not sure how many times I had to go to jail, and that, like, I went through CATS, and then after that, right after that, I went into a different program, and I had stayed clean for, I think, like a year, and then I was out on the run again not on the run, but, I was out again for, I think, 2 years, and my mom kept saying, you need to go to Odyssey House, you need to go to Odyssey House, and I was like, I know I do, but not until I get caught. Like, to me,
Of course, right?
to me, I was okay, like, because I was off the streets, like, in a motel, I was, like, maintaining,
Right.
I had money in my pocket every day because of the crimes I was committing, and to me it was okay because I wasn't stealing from people anymore, I was stealing from stores. And I finally got caught, and then I went to jail, and that's when I finally called my mom, like, okay, I'm ready to go to Odyssey. And that's when she, did what she had to do to pull some strings, get me into Odyssey. I got a couple counties and a couple judges to agree to let me go to Odyssey, and that's how I got there.
What was that surrendering point for you? Because you had tried different times before, right? And so what was that surrendering point? Like, how did you know you were finally ready?
I knew that I was finally ready because my son was with his dad, and it was just like, it's not a very nurturing environment over there. And I knew he needed me, and like I needed him, you know. And I was just like, what are you doing, you know? And I looked at my mom, and like I was like, if she could do the single mom thing with 3 kids, like, why can't I just do it with 1 kid? Like, I was just ready to do it. And I think what did it was just like some sober time in jail, and it needed to be done. So I just did it.
So you went to Odyssey House.
Yeah.
And how was that? Let's say, so you went to Odyssey House. What was the most beneficial thing, that aha moment that you were like, okay?
That aha moment.
If there was one.
I was a terrible client. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
Like, I had intervention after intervention after intervention. And they tried with me. But, like, I would say that aha moment was like, they taught me a lot. I learned a lot. A lot of the things I was like, why are they doing this? And then, like, I'd be like, oh, okay, like, this is why they were doing it. Like, I finally would understand why they would do some of the things they were doing. But I would say the biggest thing I learned was, like, the difference between, like, guilt and shame. Like, okay, I'm guilty. I did these terrible things, but, like, I don't have to be ashamed of it anymore. You know? And
The past is the past.
right. And just like learning from my peers too. And now it's crazy because now I work next to a lot of the people who were, you know, teaching me, like my peer support people,
What do you mean?
like Cindy.
Well, so you went through Odyssey. So you're saying now you work at Odyssey.
Oh, right. So now I get to work at Odyssey, and you're my boss, which is the coolest thing because you're just like such a powerful, inspirational woman, and
Thank you.
I get to meet with you every Tuesday morning.
It's true. It's true. We do.
She started the Rachel Santizo fan club, so that's why.
Basically,
It's true. We do meet.
You know, a lot of people, we brag about the fact that we're a therapeutic community, and that one of the reasons we're successful is because we have people like all of us working in the program because we've been there, done that.
Right.
Explain how that works, because as opposed to having an outsider who maybe studied addiction but wasn't in addiction, why it sometimes works better to have somebody who's recovering than somebody who just studied the issue. Why does that? Why did that make a difference to you? Like when you were in the Odyssey program, to know that somebody like Rachel was out on the streets running and gunning like you were.
because she's been where I've been, like we can relate, and she can teach me what she knows, you know.
I just think it's important that people understand. A lot of people hear that, well, we hire people with criminal records and
Right.
and who have been drug addicts and have been out on the street, and that can't be good for my kid to go into that program because they're with a bunch of other addicts.
Right.
Tell me why that's faulty thinking.
It's faulty thinking because when you have a background, you think you're not going to get a job. It's hard to get a job when you have a background. But when you have the opportunity to go work with other people like you and show them that like it's possible to get clean and you know get a job and get a good job and you know, just show them that it's possible to like get off the streets and live a better life and be like a part of society. It's just a cool opportunity.
Describe the difference in your personal life now in recovery as opposed to in addiction.
Now it's not like I don't have to wake up every morning and, you know, go to the mall and steal just to survive. Now I get to wake up every morning and go hang out with clients and, show them what it's like to be sober. Now I get to wake up and hang out with my son, and now I get to wake up and be a part of my family's life, which is crazy. Like, I never thought that would be possible after the things I did to them, because I did some terrible things. So it's just crazy that, like, forgiveness is possible, especially after the things I did to them, You never think that, like, I don't know. It's just crazy that after doing such horrible things, and it's cool that second and third and seventh and eighth chances are possible.
What, in terms of your personal happiness, how would you describe the difference?
Oh, it's like black and white. Like, I love to laugh, and it's just so cool. I get to laugh every day, and I laugh so much. I have the best relationship with my sister. I talk to her on the phone every day, and we laugh so much. We have tons of inside jokes, and the difference between then and now is just, like, happiness, period. Like, I find humor in everything. It really doesn't matter what it is. I can make a joke out of pretty much anything.
Were you happy when you were addicted to heroin, when you were high on heroin?
No, it was like a false sense of happiness, You like to think you were happy, but no, like, looking back, it was just, like, miserable because you were always just, like, chasing something, It was just, like, a constant struggle. There was no happiness in it. And you were always, like, surrounded by, like, dirtiness, someone always trying to get something from you. Always, no, there was just always darkness around you.
Do you share these stories with our clients?
I mean, sometimes I don't like to. Sometimes, I mean, I feel like we all kind of share, or we all kind of have that same history. I try to, like, share my present now, like, what's going on now, instead of, like, we all know what happened in our past, we don't need to really go back there, because, I don't know, it's easy to get into, like, that criminal pride,
I did
So,
this. And
yeah. So,
I was tougher than you were,
right.
you know.
So, I don't know, I kind of try to just stay, like, like, let's stay in the present.
One of the things the relatives of addicted loved ones asked, can anybody recover? What do you think?
Yeah, I think anybody can recover. Like, especially if I can do it, anybody can, for sure. I was using drugs for almost 20 years. So I think that it's definitely possible for anybody to do it.
I was a functional alcoholic for 40 years,
Right.
and now I'm going on. Rachel and I have similar birthdays. We're
We
going
do.
on 10 years this year.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
almost a
Wow.
decade together.
That's a long time. And
I
I
know.
never thought back then that there's any way that I could go for more than a couple of days
Yeah.
without drinking, or how about you using? I mean, that scared the hell out of me to think that I really shouldn't ever do that again, because if I have one drink, I'll have 100.
I would watch people celebrate sobriety dates, and I didn't think that could be me. I think the more challenging celebration was thinking that I could be a mom. There was no way. I was like, how am I going to pay bills? How am I going to pay for their stuff? I did not think that I could be a mom. I didn't know how I was going to do it, or if I was capable of doing it. That scared me more than anything.
Tell us about your son.
Oh, he's so cool.
The coolest.
Yeah.
Oh, you met him?
Well, We have a relationship. We write notes kind of and relay messages, but he's G money to me. So yeah, we have a relationship. We've never met in person though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
He's, I mean, he's hard to describe. He's just like so kind-hearted. He's so brave. Like, he is like he's just like lived through so much adversity, you know? He'll be 11 on Martin Luther King Day.
Wow.
Yeah. He just got accepted into the gifted and talented classes.
Wow.
He's just like so into science. He's just so brave, you know. He's just lived a tough little life. Like, he was through his first raid when he was 2 years old. You know what I mean? I've put him through a lot, and I'm just really lucky to have him in my life. He's just the coolest.
He obviously was aware of your addiction.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever talk about it?
Not really, because I don't think he wants to talk about it, because he lives with his dad full time, and I think I don't want to like talk bad about his dad, especially never in front of him, but I don't think that his dad has said very nice stuff about it. So I just like to show him through my actions. And I know that when he's older, the truth will just come out. So when he asks questions, I'll definitely answer them. But I don't feel like I need to bring it up until he's ready to, until he wants to know.
How would you respond if he said, "Mommy, didn't you love me? I mean, why were you doing all that stuff and neglecting me?" How would you answer that?
I think that there's no question about it that I love him. He knows, like, we have this crazy bond, like, we just adore each other, you know? And I think that he knows that I love him because I always made sure he was safe. Like, if I wasn't in a safe environment, I would bring him to my mom. Except for the time that, you know, we were in that raid. I was getting high, and it just wasn't good. But after that, I let my mom take him because I wasn't in a good place. So I think, yeah, I would let him. There's never a question that I didn't love him, and I think that he's totally aware of it. There was a time where I didn't see him for 2 years, and when I did see him, it was like that never even happened, you know? And yeah, I don't think that he would ever even question that.
So let's close. We only have about a minute left. Let's close this with you telling everybody watching about recovery. What would you say about recovery?
I would say that it's worth it. It's hard to finally get there, but it's worth the fight. And definitely, if you know someone who needs to get into it, you can't really push them, but just help them get there if they ask for help, and just love them through it, you know, like my mom did. She supported me through it. If I wasn't ready for it, she wouldn't enable me. That's all I can really say.
Any final thoughts?
Oh man, I'm truly honored because I get to work next to her
Yeah,
every
lucky
day,
you.
and so
Yeah.
I'm a lucky girl. So I love them more the how honest and real and raw we can be when it comes to our children and our stories, and so I'm just incredibly thankful for you coming on and being so open and honest about G Money and your story. So just thank you for being you.
Thank you.
One of the things we learn in Odyssey is to share our feelings and our thoughts and to be honest about stuff. And you've done that today. And I think anybody watching would understand that it's really hard to just sit down and talk about this kind of stuff.
Right.
But I think your aha moment, I think, is one of the most important things that you pointed out today, that to get rid of the shame you know, yeah, it's your history. It's all of our history,
Right.
you know, but there's hope for the future.
Right.
Right.
Always.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching another edition of Odyssey House Journals.